everybody. Welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Don Zoldi, your host, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and publisher at Autonomy Global. It is that time of year for our annual holiday show, and we are super excited to share with you some of our favorite clips of the year. We also wanted to take a second to thank all of you, our fans, our sponsors, and of course, our wonderful partner, AUVSI. It's been an awesome year. We also wanted to take a second to preview what is coming up for the end of the year and into 2026. We will have a special clip dump next week on the Autonomy Global Network, so it won't be your normal Dawn of Autonomy podcast, but check out AGN on YouTube and catch some additional clips from the year. And then we're going to take a couple weeks off and enjoy the holidays with some friends and family, as we hope you will as well. When we come back strong in 2026, we're going to be going ahead and focusing on building and growing that Autonomy Global Network. So check us out. And that's all she wrote. Ho, ho, ho. Enjoy the show. Let's talk about DFW. We're talking about deployments. We're talking about autonomy. Great proof of concept happening out there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You're very much involved in that. Everybody's talking about operational evaluations and what's going on down there. I know you did some things through NASA and a DOT Smart Grant initiative. Tell us about those things.
Well, first, I want to address something you said earlier. You know, the FAA in their NPRMS, in the preamble, acknowledge that weather between METAR sites is uncertain, basically, that you can't depend on the data from a METAR site once you get away from the airport. They use 5 nautical miles as a rule of thumb. We generally do that. But the issue is that changes based on the weather. The worse the weather is, the smaller the relevancy of that area. That's the challenge, because the weather changes, right, locally. So they've acknowledged that, and they've said that we are going to have to look at using third-party weather services as part of the system, potentially, to solve this. And they've written Part 146 as draft, and they have something called an automated data service provider. And weather used to be a supplemental data service provider, but due to banging on the drum from people you know on this call, they now recognize we need to bring it up to the same level as detect and avoid and surveillance, and they have. And so we're working right now on an NTAP waiver with the FAA. I give them a lot of credit. Meetings out of this morning indicate that around Dallas-Fort Worth, we're going to hopefully have that, and it's going to be maybe even adaptable to more operators than just one at a time based on what we discussed this morning. I give them a lot of credit. We have the best weather network really in the world right now around Fort Worth to do this testing and evaluation, not just of trying to demonstrate the value of this data to end users if they're willing to try it, but also the value of the standard that we've written for ASTM, the value of what FAA is trying to do with Part 146, and the value of how this is all coming together so that third-party weather providers can be trusted and used for UTM and for sharing data across the ecosystem, and they can do it safely. So that's the big point about the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I think
we have a cool video, Don. So what I want to do, let's roll the video and you talk over this and tell us what we're seeing. Let's go ahead and roll that.
So this was the beginning of us putting our first scanning wind LiDAR in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The video you see is the helicopter dropping that on top of Alliance Airport's terminal. Thank you, Chris Ash. Thank you, North Texas. Thank you, Ernest Huffman. Thank you, everybody who's believed that we got a problem here. We've got to start getting our head around. And what this is these scanning wind LiDARs, there's 3 of them. And there's also vertical LiDAR. So a scanning wind LiDAR could see 5 to 10 kilometers on a radius. And we do searches for wind using Doppler technology and looking for dirt and dust in the air. And we can then take that data and we can bring it into a grid, and we can have much more accurate low altitude weather at different layers up to about 3,000 feet. We also have vertical wind LiDARs we're putting out, which are just pointing straight up. And then we also have ceilometers to collect ceiling height between airports and visibility sensors and cameras. So we're going to have a much better picture of what the low altitude looks like from a micro weather perspective. And then we're going to start running our modeling. And I think we're going to show that in a second, some of the wind modeling that we are demonstrating today and running every hour around Fort
Here we go. Here's that video. We're rolling right into it. Tell us what we're looking at.
So what this is this is a 2 by 2 kilometer area. We call this swaps. And what it does is it takes the current model that we think is the best available data. We downscale that and run it through the buildings. And what this shows you is how buildings change the wind speed and direction. And so we're going to be working to get this packaged into a product that we could give to our operators through some of our partners out there today we're working with, to get this to them so they could do a better, manage their routes better, stay away from where the winds are swirling around buildings too much, because winds actually blow downwind off these buildings. So, you may want to change your route to go upwind of a building on a certain day. This shows you what those winds are looking like and how they're swirling.
That's great.
This is going to be very critical at vertiports in urban areas, right? Because, right now it's kind of a guess about what those winds are looking like. You got a windsock, really, and a windsock is good to 15 knots, and you have to be looking at it. So it's not very good for digitizing information to get it into automated systems. So what we want to do is get this out. We're also going to be assimilating that LiDAR data in. So we're going to get better conditions of what's really happening. And then we'll be able to do machine learning and validation of this. And we'll be able to improve these forecasts over a period of time, over a year or two. And that's what real machine learning about weather's about, having real data and validating it with real data in order to improve the forecast. And so I'm looking forward to getting this out in other areas around the country, in certain areas, and as well as overseas.
I love it. I love that one of the key colors is pink. I just gotta give a shout out to that. And reminding me of pink, we've got Drone Desi Diva out there. Drone Diva Desi, I'm sorry, Desi Exyn is out there as well. So love Desi and everything she's doing for the industry, and being a fan today, like saying, yes, Don, everything you're saying is so true. So
by the way, I just want to say that was live. So we're running that every hour today in that area as a demonstration.
Wow. Yeah.
It goes out to 6 hours. It takes into account the changing big weather changes, and then it downscales that into little changes that reverberate. And so we still got a lot of work to do. It's not productized yet, but that's what we're working on for 2026.
Can you walk us through a little bit with regards to those that task force report and some of the key policy recommendations that they're making around AI?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So the House does have an AI task force, and they've released a bipartisan report advocating for sector-specific regulations and an incremental approach to AI policy. So a couple of those recommendations that you'll see include really some sector-specific regulations. So tailoring those AI regulations to specific industries to address these types of unique challenges and risks that they're facing. Adopting, a step-by-step approach to AI legislation, which is going to allow for the adaptability, as the technology evolves. And then a big emphasis too, just on ethical AI. So ensuring that these AI systems are developed and deployed ethically, with a focus on fairness, accountability, transparency, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, and like we just said, oftentimes the state level will mimic what we're seeing at the federal level, and so that's the federal Congress. What are you saying, in terms of state level AI initiatives, legislation or otherwise?
Yeah, so the states are definitely mimicking some of what federal is doing, or kind of following the similar approach as what they're doing, because again, these policies are so critical and they're so important at both federal level and the state level. So state governments, right now there's over 150 bills related to the government's use of AI that are being considered in 2024. Wow. So at the state level, yeah, I know, it was like a lot. It's crazy. Some of these emerging trends at the state level, include just the AI inventories and impact assessments. So mandating these state agencies to maintain inventories of their AI systems and conduct impact assessments to evaluate potential risks and, what those potential benefits are as well. Establishing, oversight mechanisms and guiding principles to ensure that responsible AI, is used within state agencies. And then a number of pilot projects as well. So launching these focused pilot programs to explore AI applications in public services and just aiming to overall enhance the efficiency and decision making at the state level.
So let's talk about the portal first.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, really at a high level, what Portal is an operations management tool for drone operators. It provides data analysis, tools, processes so that drone operators can do things safely and plan their missions, track flights, track operators and their aircraft data, all of that in one uniform place. We're also beginning to build in things like real-time monitoring of drone activity, crewed aircraft data, a lot of those layers that we can put on top to, again, provide that one safe picture for drone operations. So there are a lot of things our tool does that we can, maybe touch the surface on, but all in, it's that one-stop shop for drone operators to plan, check, manage their operations.
Okay, very, very good. And I know Michael, your CEO, is very plugged in with Esri. In fact, I was just at GeoBiz in January. I'm headed to Geo Week in Denver next week. Esri's always has a big presence there. There's geospatial data and maps to understand kind of the world around us. I know that's a really big part of what you've incorporated. I think it's their ArcGIS online that's also incorporated into that portal.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, Esri plays a huge role in Portal. We're a close partner with them, and really that GIS data built on the Esri platform allows us to provide that data and all of these different analyses, data layers, things that again enable these safe operations. That's built on the Esri backbone.
And not only that, but you guys are pretty much plug and play, because I know you've integrated like with Pix4D and a couple others. Do you want to talk about some of the other sources of drone data that can be integrated or that are already integrated into AirHub Portal as well?
Yeah, I mean, the world is our playground in that sense. We have, a really strong API team that can pull in data from anywhere. We have certified data from the FAA. We have data from the Census Bureau. All those organizations that you mentioned, we can bring in data really from anywhere and also provide it out in many different formats. So we have our tool and our software portal, but we can also provide data via API and pretty much all of our major services via API. So that connectivity enables so many different types of operations. And again, our goal is not to be the software tool that is the only place that you can go for this data. You can get it however you need to fit your system.
Okay, that's awesome. By the way, everybody, we are live. Just a reminder, we've got our buddy Fire Mech Tech Robb out there coming at us as well. He's a super fan. Good morning, Robb. He's usually with us every week, so thanks for joining in again today, and everybody else out there. I want to talk now about what's in store for 2025. We just had this theme last month of 2025 look ahead. You guys really bridge that as we think about data-driven ops. And I want to focus first on Detroit, because this AAIR is something unique. So tell us about the work you're doing there.
Yeah, I'd love to. Detroit and our Detroit Air Project, AAIR, is kind of my wheelhouse. I'm the program manager, and we're doing so many things. 2025 is going to be a big year. The focus is on beyond visual line of sight, BVLOS as we call it, operations, and enabling those. And so aligning kind of with what the FAA is trying to do with their new Part 108 rulemaking that hopefully will come out into proposed rulemaking soon. And yeah, fingers crossed there. But enabling those operations, starting with maybe small scale, limited beyond visual line of sight operations, and moving to really repeatable, scalable operations, potentially miles and miles across the city. And again, always doing that safely in the correct ways. So AIR is this P3 partnership with the state of Michigan, with Michigan Central and us and New Lab, who's a startup incubator. to enable those operations. So anything from really could be the community engagement to the infrastructure and data to enable them. Think radar, think ADS-B feeds, and then all of the other supporting pieces, whether it's waiver support, operational support via management tools like AirHub Portal. That is the high level of what Air is, and there's so many pieces there that we could dig into.
Well, I think we have a video. Picture usually paints 1,000 words, so let's go ahead and roll that and walk us through what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so this is the high level is the Michigan Central Campus. It's been redeveloped. I want to say it's billions of dollars of money in making this the Michigan Central Station, which is actually modeled after Grand Central Station in New York, where I live. But making this an innovation zone, whether it's on the ground or in the air, enabling those technologies and the exploration of technology in this region. So we have that, I think it's 15, 16 floor building there in the middle that acts as kind of a vantage point. You can see downtown Detroit there in the background. And from the 12th floor, where we have a station that is being built out for kind of a control and op center, you can see for miles and miles in every direction, which is going to help enable us to leverage that platform that I was talking about, the air platform, to make sure that we can see a crewed aircraft in the area, see the operations that we're supporting going on, and then provide a central location for operators, managers, whoever that need to be involved in those. So this region is like the center point, and then we're going to keep growing from there.
Yeah, and I just want to, okay, we have another image here, a couple images popping up, but I want to kind of, we'll go ahead and put those down because I want to talk through some of the things we just saw, honestly. Just to really foot stomp them. People may, that big building, like you said, that Michigan Central Station, a former train station, a historical building that has been completely renovated, very beautiful, with that 14th floor that you talked about and everything else that goes with it. Spectacular building, but the one across the street, which was smaller, in context, smaller. That is, can you tell everybody what that is? That's the New Lab Incubator. What's that building called? The one where we had the AAIR forum event.
It's the old book depository, the old USPS, I believe, but it is the New Lab building now. And so that is where New Lab and Michigan Central are partnered, and we're headquartered actually there to kind of incubate some of these startups that are in the region. And so we're there. There are a couple other drone and ground tech companies there, but it's really the center point for where we will be working to enable all these things. Michigan Central also has a really cool development on the roof. There's kind of a terrace and things like that, but they're putting in cement for a drone takeoff and landing site up on the roof. And that doesn't even get into those much larger crown parcel flight enablement site. I'm forgetting the name right now. That is just adjacent in one of the parking lots. So we have a lot of things in terms of infrastructure and physical sites getting developed and built in the area.
I want to kind of transition and focus a little bit more on, really what's new. Because as I said, we had Kevin and Jeremy on the show previously, and I know you guys continually evolve in terms of your technology and new rollouts and updates. So tell a little bit about like what's been happening and what's new at Mark 43.
So we just had our, and I never thought as a Marine and as an officer, I would talk about something of sales kickoff. I'm in this private industry now, and I didn't know what to expect. This is the first time I've kind of been in the private industry, and I got to go to something called sales kickoff. Again, didn't know what to expect, and I got there and I was completely blown away. Mark 43's got this new thing coming out. It's called Insights, and I could have had this as an administrator. This would have been a game changer, either going to your commissioners needing more money for whatever aspect of your police department or your city council. So Insights is a platform that basically brings analytics in, and they're using so much to bring it so quickly, pretty much on a live platform. And I wish Kevin was here to explain a little bit more. I got to see a demonstration of this, but basically an administrator or somebody at the city can say, I want to see traffic stops on Main Street from this date to this date, with the type of clearances, how did they clear it, how many citations were generated, etc. And it can break it all down instantaneously to you. And when you can truly show what your patrol and different divisions are out there doing, pretty much in live time, it shows that the people are out there doing their jobs. And if we have a shortage somewhere, the Insights is going to be able to come in and tell you where else you need to focus on. And being a patrol all the way to administrator, that was so important, because you have these officers down here trying to do their best, but unless they have, pardon the term, the insights of what's going on in the city, they really don't know where the problems are, except from what they're hearing from their first line supervisors. So this Insights is going to truly change the game to where, if you're going to look at this as an NFL or MLB professional sports, you're going to have the best playbook out there. And that's what I love about Insights. I'm hoping all of our existing and new customers say this is something that we need. Because I'm telling you, if I would have had this, it would have been an amazing game changer. Insights is awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, having been a leader in the DoD, there's a lot of mail that needs to be answered. And, a lot of slide decks, PowerPoint, that they call it death by PowerPoint for a reason, right? Where you have to, like in military justice, you have to break down, the demographics of the people you're court-martialing. Are there bad trends here in terms of, are you targeting certain groups and things like this, right? So that kind of data, have a system like this to push a button and then generate it. And I don't know if it's to the point or will be to where it pops out on a slide or report, but like, wowza. And then, for like you said, the trooper on the ground, if you will, some, I don't know, watching the news, they've had to, answer emails like, here's 5 things I did last week. Boy, with Mark 43, you could generate those bullets pretty quickly. So go Mark 43, more and more important for the federal government every single day as we watch what's happening. But I love that. I know the cybersecurity enhancements as well. And you guys also, my understanding is there's some enhancements to the mobile data terminals and updates in how you guys are interfacing with those. Can you explain that a little bit? Maybe Ganesha?
Yeah, you were right in my mind, because one of the things that excites me the most is our improvements on mobility. So we've been a leader in mobility for RMS for a while. We've now really improved on our CAD as well. I loved it at the last IACP. We actually had some of our customers sitting at our booth and actually dispatching from our booth. Wow. Right. Yeah. So that you can continue your job, continue your work, no matter what's happening around you from wherever you are. I don't think we're going to get to the place where we want dispatchers at home in their bed. But being able to do that, it makes a difference too when you're going call to call to call, which is what's happening these days. People are being called on double overtime to cover shifts, and so making that as easy as possible. You're on the scene. You're able to take pictures. Those pictures are automatically uploaded. If you're not going to be the investigator back at HQ is able to see all the information from what you've uploaded and get working on that. And that's really important too on community relations, right? Because the ability to be responsive to our community when, officers are saying the same thing over and over, but that moment is the most important thing to them, and not being able to get a response is difficult. So, at Mark 43, our goal is the technology is supposed to make the job easier. This is a hard job for law enforcement all up and down the ranks, federal and otherwise. How do we make it easier? And I'll say another thing, and then I'll pass it over to Banning if he has anything to add, that I'm loving is that we're working with tribal police as well, and folks that are out there in rural, right, in the rural areas, and being able to make sure that they have mobile capabilities as well, because we know that's important. You got miles and miles between, different posts and things of that nature.
As you look back, what constraints would you say have been some of the hardest that you had to overcome in advancing UAS development in the state?
So when we started in 2005, so we've been at this for 20 years now, and we didn't know what it was going to turn into, and obviously it's exceeded our expectations. But when we started out, we wanted the FAA to work with us to fly unmanned aircraft in the NAS, in the National Airspace. And the answer was always no, 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 because if there's nothing up there, you can't have an accident. And their whole thing is safety. And so we thought, well, this is the perfect part of the country to do it because we have open airspace. We're not in the main flyway, so you don't have congestion issues. We have all of the expertise with people don't realize it, but actually the Grand Forks Air Force Base is in the top 25 in terms of landing and takeoffs because of our huge flight school. So we have the expertise and have had all those things made us a great place to help FAA figure out how they were going to handle this new technology, unmanned aircraft in the NAS. But the answer was always no, because they didn't, of course, want to take a chance. And that's why when I went to the Senate in 2011, I passed legislation, working with others, I passed legislation that set up 6 test sites that said, FAA, you have to allow these test sites to fly aircraft in the NAS. And that's really what we needed to just jumpstart the thing. I'd started a Center of Excellence at the University of North Dakota and a number of things like that to get going. But, the Rubicon that we really had to get across was being able to develop this stuff in the NAS. And of course, we just couldn't until once we passed that legislation for the test sites where we said, FAA, you have to, they felt then kind of the onus or the problem was taken off their back. If something happened, well, they were directed by Congress. It was the law. They had to allow something up there. And that's where we really got going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really interesting, Senator, because oftentimes the military will advance technologies and then it'll cross over to the commercial sector. And, we having been in the Air Force myself, as you mentioned, we've been doing long range military operations with the Group 4 and 5 aircraft. I know some of them are sitting on the flight line there at Grand Forks Air Force Base as we speak. But what's really interesting to me is kind of this leap forward. And Tom, I'm going to go back to you, this leap forward where the military never really embraced like drone technology on the base for logistics. As an example, we all know a base is like a city, right? And that wing commander is like a mayor, for lack of a better term. And all the things that happen on a city, in a city, whether it's, there's firefighting, there's police work, there's all kinds of things. And the military was very reticent, I think, to embrace drone technologies for all those reasons. And let's fast forward to Project Ultra, because this really is groundbreaking. You wouldn't think so, but in terms of from a military base into the National Airspace System, that's something you talked about, Senator, and then back to another, basically military base, a space station in this instance, and Project Ultra. So, Tom, walk us through, how the idea for Ultra even was hatched. Was that your team? Was that DoD? Was this just a meeting of the minds? Because it seems to me like we should have been doing this a really long time ago, but we're finally getting there, and that's super exciting.
So a couple things, happened with that, Don. And, as with most things, serendipity certainly was at play. Office of Undersecretary of Defense had a small program and where they were doing a lot of traffic management. They were supporting NASA and AFRL with their Freddie and Clue systems, respectively, about traffic management, UAS traffic management. And that was growing and becoming more mature. Northern Plains Test Site and the University of North Dakota were a part of those programs. And they were raising their hand saying, hey, and Senator Hoeven has been extremely helpful with his leadership in adding getting a little bit more plus up in that program. And the program lead started to look around and said, well, wait a minute, we need a place where we can actually start to do these things, not just research and not just do the academic side of it. And I don't need to, poo-poo that, but it's, they wanted to be able to start to fly. And we raised our hand and said, hey, we have this thing at Grand Sky. It's on a military base. We have the Class Delta airspace. The Air Force is on board. The congressional delegation is 100% supportive of this. We have the test site. You have all the ingredients that you need right here to be able to fly the aircraft and demonstrate the efficacy of your systems. And they said, you know what? You're right. Let's get a contract to you guys. We figured out how to work that out. I think we did a chat with you at the last AUVSI about that, about getting contracts. And that contract, we needed a name. The senator has been so helpful with his leadership, and, you can't pass up a chance for a good name. So we came up with Ultra UAS Logistics, Traffic Management, Readiness, and Autonomy is what the acronym is for. And so we came up with that. Now, but the next step became, we need real world scenarios. It's not enough to just fly a drone across a field and show a traffic management system. Let's actually do something with it. Cavalier Space Force Station is just up the road, just a little more than 50 miles away as the crow flies, but as a drive, it's much longer than that. And so it was, how can we move aircraft back and forth, again, all the way through? So we have to have complete visibility on that aircraft and everything around that aircraft in the airspace where that aircraft is flying. And that's easy here in the Class Delta because the Air Force Base knows everything and deconflicts everybody within the area around Grand Forks Air Force Base. But Cavalier is Class Echo or Gulf. I can't remember. I think it might be Echo. And it's so it's uncontrolled airspace. So, we have to coordinate and be able to show and know that we can fly safely. So that was a pretty big challenge that we had to work through to simulate that. And so as Ultra matures, it's going to take on more real world scenarios. And it is not a trivial thing, by the way. Using UAS in a beneficial way on base is very rare, but using UAS to leave Class Delta airspace, to leave the Air Force Base airspace, and then come back into it takes a lot of trust. The Air Force needs to really trust us that we know what we're doing, our team knows what it's doing, and that it's our aircraft coming and going. And so, building that capability is where I see a little bit of future of Ultra going. But that's kind of how we got into this, a little bit of serendipity and a good quality name.
I will tell you that the Volaris solution, which is specifically designed for the commercial civil UAS AAM industry, I want to tell you a few key things about it. One is it is based and it is supported by the exact same L-band high availability SATCOM network that we use to provide to thousands of commercial air transport aircraft. So it has to be, that signal has to be robust enough to provide communications for many, many passengers, thousands of passengers flying everywhere. And we're using the same satellites, the same ground networks. We're tailoring it and we're shrinking it so that shrinking the satellite terminals and antennas that go on the vehicle. So we can use it for civil air transport. So it really, and it's based on our newest, most sophisticated SATCOM service. It's based on our what we call Swift Broadband Safety Iris, which is our newest and most sophisticated waveforms and satellite communication technology. So that is the Volaris service. And of course, in addition to our L-band, we have a long history, both Viasat and Inmarsat, of providing C2 link services for governments and militaries all over the world. Right. So we're taking some of that experience and we're bringing it into the world of our civil commercial product.
Yeah. And I mean, just the foot stomp, this 99.9% availability of Volaris and this dedicated L-band, I mean, that's no joke. And when you think about not just
Okay, it would be awful for like a drone delivering a package to drop out of the sky because it lost the C2 link, right? That's bad. But, when you think about carrying human passengers and that precious cargo, these C2 links are critical for those flights. And so thank you for what you're doing. I know you guys selected safety and standards because at the end of the day, this is what you're providing it's all about safety. And like you said, you've been doing it for years. But tell us about, this is about much more than a connection. And you've got C2 links, but also there's other things that you're able to integrate into Volaris that make kind of a holistic safety package for whether it's a drone or whether it's an eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft.
Well, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned earlier, working with some of our partners in integrating a lot of solutions. So we provide a communication link, but a UAS or an AAM vehicle is a lot more than just a communication link.
Right.
To operate beyond visual line of sight, there's a whole eco system that has to come together to make that happen. So you have to work with detect and avoid technology that has to be integrated into the platform. You have to be able to support lost C2 link procedures. So if worst case, you do lose connection with your C2 link, your vehicle doesn't fall out of the sky. It continues on an expected trajectory and an expected flight path. You have to be able to connect with UTM providers and with U-Space providers so that you can look out ahead when you're planning your flight path to make sure that you're going to have the appropriate coverage and availability and you know what to expect. You have to, we're working with video compression providers so that we can support that kind of technologies. So you're right. Flying a UAS or an AAM vehicle is not just about the pilot. It's not just about the physical vehicle, and it's not just about the C2 link. It's about that whole packaging of technologies and capabilities that are supported in this very small package.
Yeah, so I know on the defense side, they're using the term modular open systems architecture or MOSA, or modular open systems approach. Is it fair to say that Volaris is basically a MOSA, capability in terms of integrating with other people's technologies?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're using an IP capability so that you can integrate multiple types of applications into the Volaris network. So that's specifically what it's designed to do.
But other than just to have you maybe explain in terms of return on investment for someone like Tedman and clients like Suncor, what are you bringing? What are drones and kind of the unique contract experience you could bring to the fight? What does that give people?
Yeah, Ted talked about the work being done with the University of Toronto and the machine learning AI side of things to essentially triage your data, right, and end up with timely insights. And realistically, it's a very same, but different kind of situation here where we're using very similar tools, very similar process, but with a specific subject matter expertise with respect to deficiencies in a fixed plant environment that allow us to go and kind of put a pin in it at that point and be able to send crews to look up, to dig deeper, potentially deploy one of those non-destructive testing drones that you touched on. So the drones for preventive maintenance is strictly visual and infrared, mind you, but those are happening simultaneously. And when we come away from the data review on that, we have essentially a heat map or a treasure map, if the term heat map isn't familiar for those. We have a treasure map of spots to go and do some very targeted, very, very specific follow-up based on now a validated reason. We're not wasting time having an operator or a contractor on site walking around and blindly looking for things. we have somewhere specific in XYZ location to send somebody to do that more targeted follow-up to see if this is a real valid concern. And if it is, how bad and how risky is it? A kind of natural progression from that point is that the tools that are being used, a combination of both hardware and software, are being used to kind of ingest Suncor specific documents, mainly the maintenance prioritization side. So when something is identified, it's being basically assigned a consequence and likelihood of failure metric based on Suncor's existing document that's existed for quite some time, which pumps out a prioritization for repair. Do we have to handle this now, or is this a turnaround group problem? Can this wait for 10 years? Do we have to worry about it? Never, right? We go through that process, and it helps the maintenance and operations teams prioritize those workflows. And ideally, because it is spatial, we can start to deploy one crew or one resource to hit a cluster. We can start to identify, some efficiencies that come from one crew going this way and hitting, 4 birds, so to speak, right? So go back to the tailings pond.
No pun intended, because we were just talking.
Yeah, I know. Jordan's not here to defend himself. I know. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and have Mike roll that video. If you could talk us through what we're seeing here in the context of Echodyne's story.
Sure. I'll do my best to keep in sync, but I'll give you here's my nutshell version of the origin story. So Echodyne originated as metamaterials, expertise, patents, and research, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail, that turned into a venture-backed company that was really determined to put agile, solid-state radar into places where radar had never been practical before due to cost, size, and power requirements. And the video would depict that. We basically have modeled the active electronically scanned array radar that sits in the nose cone of a 5th-gen fighter jet and have taken that down to a size that, fits in the palm of your hand, that's sub 3 pounds. And that's our Echo Guard unit. And we have the Echo Shield unit, which is about the size of a backpack. But the idea is the same. How do we take this gold standard of radar technology and make it practical where it hasn't been before?
Excellent. I know the video is still rolling, but for those that are not savvy in radar, what's kind of the value of radar? In other words, we hear about it. We know it's used, like you said, in not only fighter jets and commercial aircraft for airspace awareness, but what exactly does it do that makes it so important for airspace awareness and protection?
Yeah, so radar is an active sensor. So, we'll talk a lot about drones today, and we see that in the video. I have it up now. Drones are very difficult to detect, really difficult to detect. And the threat is emerging daily, right? I mean, we just saw the attack just this past week, something that was unexpected. So what radar provides is sort of that fundamental sensor that provides an active view of everything that's in the airspace, whether it's a drone that's been built overnight, a new FPV that's been deployed, a swarm of FPVs that have been deployed that are moving faster than expected. A radar will pick that up. It doesn't require a signature or sort of a known signal or footprint to detect that. And so that's where radar becomes this, backbone of a system.
Okay, and I'm going to go with an acronym here just to make sure we're all on the same page. I know ESA is a big deal, electronically scanned array performance. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So, mechanically scanned array is a radar that spins. You might, sort of the old school, you'll see these depicted in the video that are spinning. Electronically scanned array is actually a beam forming radar that's solid state, that's fixed, it doesn't move. And so beams are formed and scanning the environment as we saw in that video, constantly and at rapid pace, and it quickly identifies anything flying in that environment. One of the cool things about what we do is then we direct other beams towards that object so that we can better verify and confirm exactly what it is and what it's doing and characterize the behavior of whatever is flying in the field of view.
I can give a comment to summarize these efficiency levels. Yeah. So
Yes, please.
what I mentioned with the results is actually due to the fact of the unique aerodynamic design, where the lift force appears on both the airframe and the propulsion set because of the fixed angle rotor design. And having this better lift force, we have this heavy payload setup, we have this vertical speed gain, and we have this maneuverability. Actually, the vertical speed gain is limited by software. The hardware limit is 12 meters per second. It's very fast gaining the altitude.
Wow.
And when we speak about the structure and this body of our O25 product, then all this frame, this triangle, this central part, this wings part,
Yep.
this stabilizer part, they are generating the lift force during the flight, and only this rear part is not generating the lift force, which means that actually more than 87% of the area of the body of the unit itself is generating the lift force. This gives the efficiency. It's not just the aerodynamics, it's not just the materials of the frame, it's not just the software and the navigation system. It's the combination of all these factors inside one product.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're watching it fly right now. Just unbelievable what you've done here. It's really an engineering marvel, to be honest with you. You walk around any show, you're not going to see anything like this. And so I love how it just really, really stands out. Let's talk about this FH125 Strix. And I think we have a slide. So let's pop this up. Want to show kind of talk about the different market segments and the gaps you're really targeting with this drone.
And so what I try to capture here is how the Meadowlark focus fits within the spectrum of the drones out there, and everything from these are DoD classification, but I think FAA uses exactly the same nomenclature. From Group 1 through Group 5, so Group 1, I think that's the Skydio, to Group 5, that's the Northrop Grumman RQ4. That's pictured.
Is Group 2 on your picture, the little lobster?
It is. That's our lobster.
Oh my gosh, dude, that is hilarious. I love it.
And then, but our focus primarily is going to be on Group 2 plus, we call it, but it really is technically is a Group 3. So if you notice, there's usually a factor of 2.5 between these weight classes, except when you go from 2 to 3, then it's a factor of like 50 or something. I haven't done the math, and I don't want to do it now. But
as a rule, Ned, I don't do public math, just so you know.
All right, good. So we needed to kind of put some sharps and flats between those two notes, and so what we were talking about Group 2 plus is 125-pound takeoff weight. You probably noticed that our aircraft is, well, we're very proud of it. We think it looks very slick, but it's not all that different from everybody else's. Everybody's building roughly the same thing because that is what inspection aircraft for that size would look like for a hybrid one. Next size up is going to be intermediate distance, intermediate weight package delivery. Again, we got to eliminate all those trucks that are out there carrying 4 tires from a warehouse to a Napa dealer in the middle of nowhere, right? And so that's my criteria. It has to be able to carry 4 tires, 150 miles. And so we're designing another aircraft, but that design point also is starting to, you see 1 or 2 of them out there now in the industry, and that's starting to take shape as a form by itself. which is designed for cargo.
So heavier cargo. Ned, I got to ask you, the gruss, you've got a picture of a bird there. I assume that is in fact a gruss. And why this bird? Why this bird?
Why does what?
Why did you pick this bird? Why this name?
Oh, we just named everything after birds, and that's I think that's a Latin name for a crane, and so therefore I have a picture of a crane. But we will unveil our design here, well, probably about 6 months from now. But honestly, it's going to look like everybody else's, very similar to everybody else's. There's no reason to not use what works well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could always throw,
is quality and volume.
Yeah. Well, and Ned, honestly, there's color. I'd love to see a pink drone. I've only seen one in my entire life. And that drone happened to be a little tiny, kind of one for school age, probably girls. And I'm like, yay, amen. I see a pink drone. Let's go there. So Fixar's got the beautiful red drone. Wingtra's got their orange. And Census Technologies kind of orange and white. I'm going to go out on a limb. I haven't really seen yellow. I haven't seen pink. Green doesn't quite work, but maybe a better green than the one I've seen. Just throwing it out there. You can differentiate it by
there's a French company.
It doesn't have to be a lobster.
There's a French company called Yellow something that does build yellow.
Oh, Yellow Scan? The
Yellow Scan, yeah.
Oh, that's true. They do have yellow drones. You put me back in my place there. Well, let's pop up this slide on your bespoke design for the FH 125 Strix.
Yeah, I think we should go to slide 3 actually. So
yeah, let's get that up. If you don't mind. Here we go. I think in a second. And while we're waiting for the slide to come up, here it is. We have a question from Morgan. What's the empty weight of the lobster, by the way?
Oh, that's a group 2. So actually, empty weight is 40 pounds and then 15 pounds of pizza and beer. So 55
or
pounds.
Sushi and
Chardonnay. Absolutely.
No, not Chardonnay, my friend. We're talking soju. Anybody that has sushi knows that soju is a thing. It's awesome. So I'm just throwing that out there. I have one more question.
I didn't think I would learn something this morning, but then Brad educated me, and now you do. So
you got to try soju, SOJU. If you've never had it, it's crazy good.
Never had it.
Very high. It's like 13% alcohol by volume. All right. So Ross is asking this really important question, and it actually goes back to the reg, and then we're going to get to your design. Who is going to do the inspections on these larger aircraft? Do you know that answer, Ned?
Who is going to do well, we have our own compliance team that would do the flight tests and all of that. And then obviously we have to work with FAA to. So some of that, again, I was getting briefed on how the inspection will change from what is in the proposed ruling. And so we would have to get better educated on that. But we are going to, but it's going to be internal to Meadowlark. I think that's the question, right? And,
I think so, but I think you're right, Ned. Again, I gotta read it deeply, but my understanding is the FAA is, of course, not ceding their inspection, authority, and they're going to be doing inspections of some of these larger aircraft just for safety reasons. But let's talk about the Strix. Our time is flying because you and I have been talking about so many different things. I knew it would. It always does. And by the way, to continue the conversation, everybody, with Ned, go back and watch his original video also from January, and then on the dawn of autonomy. And of course, join him live in North Dakota in October. If you've never been to the UAS Summit, it's a phenomenal event, kicking off with Grand Sky on Monday, happy hour out there, and then the actual main event. But okay, Strix. Let's pop the slide back up. Sorry, my amazing producer in the background, because I talked over it. Let's just walk us through, hit the highlights.
Okay, 125 pounds, and I think we said 10 hours, but that is with full 35-pound payload and 2 kilowatts of power. But we could do a 20-hour flight. You just have to slap another gas can on it. And this is a hybrid propulsion, two-stroke engine in the back, and VTOL. But what really is special about it is, and so here if you have an aerial system, then of course it's comprised of multiple subsystems, and I've listed that on this slide. And the 6 on the left are onboard the aircraft, and the 3 on the bottom are support systems that are not on board the aircraft. And so because we're building a digital twin of the aircraft, each one of those subsystems also have a digital form that can then be optimized. The easy way to explain that is, where's the center of mass moving if I take this gimbal out and put this particular sensor on, and so on and so forth. But it's more complex than that in terms of noise interference between different systems, cabling, all of that. And so for that aircraft, I mentioned 2 use cases, and you actually added some to it with SAR. So with, for example, with GPR has to go hand in hand with SAR because the resolution otherwise wouldn't be good enough. And so now you're looking at, how to get the aircraft to be stable enough in its performance to be able to do synthetic aperture while you're flying. The other thing is the capability to hover for the aircraft is very important. So when you're doing these kinds of leak detections, for example, you set your detection threshold to be very, very low. So your beta airs are going to explode, but because you don't want to miss any, it's very critical that if you see or if you detect a leak, that you identify it. But because you're setting that very low, you get a lot of false alarms. You have to be able to, on the same sortie, go back, hover, take deeper data, and then move on. And those are the capabilities that we built into our system, both from the avionics, the sensor capacity, and also the control firmware that goes on the aircraft to be able to do that.
And then, you're alluding to it. I mean, look, the drone collects the data, but you're talking now about the analytics on the back end. So are you also making that?
I'm going to add one more things on the aeronautics, because
go ahead. It's
very important. That transition between vertical hover and going on the wing is a really critical aspect of getting the firmware.
The cockpit of an aircraft is a very busy place, especially when you're flying at low altitude, the 400-foot range, 200-foot range. Your head's on a swivel. You're maybe looking in at your instruments, and I think a colonel in National NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board hearing had said, "Hey, we look in the cockpit about once every 10 seconds." So most of the time, you're looking out for traffic. So now, while it's great to have a little scope that tells you that there's traffic in different places, the pilot is appropriately not going to spend a whole lot of time staring at that thing.
Right.
So now you go to the next level of safety, and that's where our true focus is. We can run the little background thing now as an image on that for ACAS.
Oh, there we go.
The image you see, super crowded. I think that was a NASA/FAA image, so all rights go to NASA on that or something like that. But basically, ACAS X, so ACAS, Airborne Collision Avoidance Systems. ACAS X is this current generation of that, and it's for whole airspace. And what that...
Can I ask you a question? Is this like the next generation of TCAS?
It's exactly that, right? So it's eliminate a lot of the restrictions that were on the use of TCAS, and I'll explain that in a second.
Okay.
So now you have ACAS X, and ACAS X has a whole bunch of little ways to differentiate which version of ACAS X. So TCAS was TCAS. You had TCAS 1, and then TCAS 2 did certain functions. They weren't for different aircraft that had new capability. right? And then along comes ACAS-X. Some of the limitations.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. That's right.
Terrain collision and avoidance system. That's what TCAS.
Not terrain, traffic.
Traffic collision and avoidance system. So what's ACAS?
ACAS is airborne collision avoidance system. So yeah, don't get me into that. I mean, because truthfully with TCAS, Europe called it ACAS. And now we come along with a new ACAS. But now everybody, I think, is around with ACAS-X as the most modern technology because there's a few things. So TCAS limits the aircraft that it's applicable to. So TCAS was designed for commercial aircraft. It was started after two commercial transport aircraft airliners crashed over the Grand Canyon in 1947. And that was when that technology was started to develop, right?
Yep.
And so it requires that you can climb at a certain rate, 2,500 feet per minute. It requires that your aircraft is moving at greater than 100 knots to be effective, or something like that, right? So it's pretty restrictive. An eVTOL aircraft.
You alluded to this, but with the ADS-B, you have to look at a screen. With TCAS, it kind of yells at you.
It does yell at you. There's oral alerts, right? And then there's also alerts in your cockpit that tells you you have a traffic advisory that says there's traffic at a certain place. It might say traffic. And then there's a resolution advisory. And in theory, the traffic advisory is advisory in nature. You've got traffic. And then the resolution advisory is directive in nature that tells that you must follow, right? If you have installed
climb or
climb or descend, and that's all it says on TCAS. So TCAS, and when the two aircraft have transponders that are talking to each other, they do this little magic of putting different information in different registers. So one will climb and one will descend to avoid a collision, but it's always vertical advisories, climbing and descending to avoid potential collisions.
So how is ACAS? How does it improve on that?
So ACAS improves in a bunch of different dimensions. ACAS is better, and it was developed by people that develop things that I can barely pronounce, right? But these Markovian processes, it's probabilistic. It uses machine learning in developing the algorithms. But a couple of things. So the ACAS-X has a bunch of variants. There's ACAS-XA, which essentially is the next version of TCAS-2. There's ACAS-XO for different unique operations, like two aircraft landing on parallel runways. You don't want to have them trying to avoid each other and miss the runways.
Okay.
You've got ACAS-XU, which is for larger fixed wing drones, like Reapers and things like that, right?
Okay.
You've got ACAS-SXU, which is for small drones, rotary or fixed wing. And that's passive. So that's for the kind of quote below 55 pound. And there's sort of a gray line at 55 pounds, but that's roughly where the cutoff is. And then you've got ACAS-XR, which is for rotorcraft. And interestingly for us, we're focused on that right now because this will be the first time that rotorcraft have a collision avoidance system that is relevant for a rotorcraft, right? Because the case, so that's
key to me.
Yeah, so the one so that's one thing. It's applicability to all different aircraft that are going to be darkening the skies, right? That's one advantage that ACAS-X brings. There's a few others. There's the potential to reduce the restrictions on altitude. So TCAS, and again, don't quote me on this because I don't study TCAS because we're not making it, but I think it's about 1,000 feet below that. Resolution advisories are suppressed or something like that. So once you get in, once you're coming in, then some of your alerting is repressed. And this instance that we talked about around National Airport was at low altitude. So those they would have had suppressed alerting in that place. ACAS allows the system to operate at a lower altitude. It also reduces more than 50% of the quote nuisance alerts, right? So there are times with TCAS when it's telling you either that you've got a traffic or potentially a resolution that are not valid. They're false positives, right? You're not on a collision course with that aircraft. for a variety of different reasons. And ACAS, the way the algorithm has been developed, is much better at filtering out false or nuisance alerts. So greater than 50%. So those are the primary reasons that ACAS is an evolution of TCAS, a better evolution, right? The applicability across different aircraft. Oh, and it also gives you not just climb and descend alerting, which obviously at low altitude, a descend alert would be a problem. Yeah. It can give you turn left and turn right alerts. So it can give you horizontal or vertical guidance, or blended. So it might tell you turn right and climb, or turn left and descend, or things like that.
I think 2025 is not going to be accused of being a boring year. I think it's going to be an exciting year for a number of reasons. We can either look at these as challenges or opportunities, however we want to. Yeah. So, things are heating up between the US and China, and that's going to impact our industry. It's always been impacting our industry. I think we've been feeling that in 2024. I think we're going to continue to feel that. But I think this is an opportunity, and what we're going to see from a global stance, because it's not just America. You're seeing this in the UK. You're seeing sentiments in Canada as well. There might not be legislation, but there's this global awareness of where our data is going and who has access. So I think there's a real opportunity for countries, and especially the United States, to start looking internally for how do they manufacture, how do they build their own businesses, industries within their own borders. So I think from a perspective of how do we handle this, there's a real opportunity for each government globally to start thinking, how can we raise the bar? How can we be competitive in this market and support these industries that really are going to need that support as the political climate changes.
Well, and Danielle, you raise a great point when you're talking about kind of building an industry within, your own borders, if you will. I think there's still going to be international collaboration, but supply chain is critical, right? I mean, it's not just where the data is going, it's where the parts are coming from, and do you have access to them? Can they be turned off like a spigot, like we recently saw with batteries? And so, what are your thoughts on supply chain?
Yeah, supply chain is part of that process. We, from the very beginning of development of manufacturing, you have to know where your pieces are coming from. You have to know where you're sourcing them. And again, that goes back to how do we bring manufacturing or redundancy in manufacturing into places that we know we can control from a standpoint when it comes to the politics of what we're dealing with. So this is a really important part. Batteries, we need to be building batteries locally so we have access to them, and enabling small companies to grow and to essentially scale. And that's a really hard thing to do without capital, right? And that kind of folds into my next statement, is that the capital markets are starting to struggle, and we're starting to see consolidation as a result of that. But I think that could also be turned into an opportunity where we start to look at an ecosystem, at how partnerships can stabilize and evolve what we're already doing and turning it into something a lot more robust and more complete as a package. So there's a lot of things going there, and in terms of what we can be doing to strengthen the industry from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think Danielle, I think you guys are a great example of that in terms of the Drone Delivery Canada merger, and this ecosystem you built, the Ops Center. So tell us a little bit about, how you guys have, focused on making lemonade out of lemons between all the different collaborations and partnerships that you've built along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been building partnerships from day one. I mean, if it isn't, we've acquired many companies, but there's also been handshakes across the aisle where we work together to fulfill the needs of our clients. So, for example, we just announced a relationship with Kongsberg Geospatial. And with this, it enables us to bring our ops center as kind of mission central into play. But then we're able to combine lots of data, lots of situational awareness, multimodal, to be able to really get a full picture of what's going on the outside. And here you see the operations control center.
Speaking of pictures, here we see the ops center.
there are 20 stations, and as regulations move forward, we'll be able to monitor up to 100 flights in this facility all over the world. It gives us we're already operating. We've done at least up to over 10,000 flights at this point out of this system. And it's really cool because in this photo, you actually see some of our Tranquility Base in the background, some of our demo test centers that enable us to partner with systems integrators, drone providers, OEMs, to demo and utilize the systems that we have and showcase it to customers to really truly demonstrate what these platforms are capable of doing, and seeing it work in real time, in real life. And it's a really exciting kind of place to be in.
We're really pushing the bounds on survey grade mapping, right? So these are digital twins. These can be for geo registering, right? So if you have sensor data for an interesting example would be, and we've done some demonstrations. This is not quite a product that a bunch of people are using, but you could imagine if you had a gas sensor on a drone, and you're again, let's say, flying an underground mine, or you're flying in let's say a damaged building. You can use the LiDAR sensor to generate a map of the environment, and then you can register, or you can locate where that kind of critical sensor information is relative to that map. So that's really the space that we focus in. Our systems generally don't interact with the environment, but they provide value just by getting places, right? By getting to places in the environment, mapping it, being able to locate critical data for the end user, and come back.
Yeah, as I'm listening to you, Brandon, I'm hearkening back. I was just a couple weeks ago at GeoGov 25 in the Washington, D.C. area. So it's pretty much the geospatial crowd, but everybody using geospatial data. But of course, a lot of them are also now incorporating drones into their workflows, whether for, hurricane preparation or disaster response, all kinds of things. And man, I'm pretty sure this is a crowd that needs to meet you and Exyn Technologies. But anyway, let's talk about this, the workflow. Okay, so we've got, the algorithm, we've got the sensors, you've got this small form factor that can be put into backpacks, put on trucks, apparently, put on the drones. Tell us about that kind of back-end workflow. How does that all work in terms of processing, either in the field or when you get back to the office?
Sure. Yeah. So you hinted at a little bit there. One of the nice things about our particular system is that our users are able to get real-time feedback. So while we said that a communications link between the system and the scan device is not required, it is something that our users can take advantage of. So we have a tablet that is used to provide the initial mission spec, whether it's the exploration volume or the waypoints to the system. The system will go and complete the mission for the portions of it that there is communication. You can see in real time a fairly high resolution, very informative map on the tablet interface. And if it, let's say, does go out of communications range, when it comes back, you can still, while kilometers underground or out at a remote site doing a scan, you can play back and see the real-time map that was generated. And I would like to address in this picture, we talked about that exploration volume. So in the picture you're seeing now, that yellow box that's around this cavity in this mine is what the user would have specified. When they would have started the mission, they wouldn't have known about exactly what the shape of the area was, but they would say, I'm starting here. I know that the area I'm interested in is out in front of me, and they'll draw that box on the screen.
Wow, that is really, really cool. Well, that's a great segue maybe to mission planning. What you guys also have a mission planning mode. I mean, that's what we were just seeing there. What are the different modes that if I was the operator that I could plug in there?
So it is, we found that for more than enough applications and use cases for our engineering team to currently keep up with, just those two waypoint and exploration modes can really solve most of the situations. One that is coming up for us, and we have this is more of an internal thing. We have a proof of concept for is an inspection mode. So rather than in this exploration mode where the system is just it kind of just needs to see for an instant all of the space that it can see within an environment. In inspection mode, you want to ensure that your sensor of interest is able to, a good analogy is paint all of the surfaces in the area. So you can imagine if you're inspecting a cell tower or if you're inspecting a face in a mine, you don't want to look across that wall and consider it covered. You want to actually get sensor time on target for that whole area of interest. So that's something that we're rolling out in some more pilot type scenarios. But those are the three relevant mission modes of the system.
Let's go ahead and roll this and walk us through what we're seeing here.
So TEAL, like I mentioned, we sell SIM cards. We can give you what's called an eSIM card, and that you can put in your device just like a SIM card in your phone. But what we really provide is this cloud-based platform. So that's what you see on the screen right here. And so from one single pane of glass, you can manage all of your SIM cards, right? Your eSIMs that are in the field. So you can monitor the health. Are they online? What networks are they connected to? And then you can also do things like decide that you want to switch a group or a fleet of them onto a different network, or you want to set a certain fallback to another network. And so we have so many different profiles, and Curtis probably knows this. And you get to choose, right? So you get to choose which networks make the most sense for any given deployment. And so you don't need to come to TEAL, for instance, to make changes. You can do that on your own. And so what we're trying to do is to say, hey, if there's an outage, that's not a risk anymore. If you're going to run into dead zones, we're de-risking that as well. But I think there's some operational things that maybe aren't so sexy, right? Is that traditionally you'd have to manage multiple contracts with multiple different carriers, multiple SIM card SKUs, and you'd have very little flexibility to switch between networks. Like you literally have to go and swap out SIMs in the field, right?
Yeah, yep.
With TEAL, you can imagine you don't have to do that anymore, right? One SIM card you can put into your device. Now you have the control and the flexibility to connect onto any network globally, even Europe, wherever. And if that's not the right network, and that does happen with deployments, then you can easily switch to the next best network over the air remotely from your computer. So we're really streamlining access to global networks. Our founder likes to say we're democratizing connectivity, because you should have the freedom to choose, and you should have the freedom to go between networks as needed. And you shouldn't be beholden to sort of a more archaic way of thinking about things. So we're a fresh approach, a new way of connecting your devices onto global networks.